Forum on Monday, the 3rd of November. This meeting is being held virtually and in accordance with Council's rules for virtual meetings. The scheduled end time for this meeting is, in accordance with the Council's rules for virtual meetings, and the scheduled time for the end of this meeting is 8 p.m. Councillors are reminded that although this meeting is being held remotely, they're regarded as being present in a meeting of the Council and it should observe the normal rules of behaviour. So first of all, please can I ask everyone present in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your camera is turned off whilst you're not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce the background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. And can members ensure that their mobile phones are now switched off or on silent? This meeting is live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel, and the recording is also available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on, and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. And members and officers, where appropriate for each item, please indicate that you wish to speak or raise a point of order or explanation by raising your hand using the hand icon on your screen, and I'll invite you to speak at the appropriate time. And each member will be invited to speak in turn, and therefore I would encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Thank you. Now, I will move on to apologies, but having said about muting the phones, I have just realised that our family dog is in the background of the room and at some point might launch into an accompaniment. So I will try and mute, not so much mute the dog, but mute the screen in time to save you all from it. Nancy, can we just start with apologies?
Thanks, Chair. I haven't received any apologies, and looking at the attendance, I'll just have a quick scan now. I'm bound to admit, I think everybody is here apart from Councillor Todd from the County Council, but I believe, did I see Councillor Ferguson join for the county instead? Or am I? And Councillor Tozer for Littleton Hairstop Parish Council isn't in attendance at the moment. Okay. I think Councillor Ferguson is online, although we did speak earlier. I think Paula, I think you're joining us as an observer today, aren't you?
I was, but if Councillor Todd is held up, I can deputise if I need to, as I'm here.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Nancy. Right. Any disclosures of interest? Councillor Porter, I think you're going to start, aren't you?
Yes, I will. I'm going to declare that I have an interest because I'm a county councillor. There are a number of items where the county council's role is vital in this forum, but I don't believe I have any financial interest or prejudicial interest in this.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Can I just echo Councillor Porter's non-prejudicial interest as a county councillor, please?
Of course, thank you. And I don't know if Councillor Warwick is with us.
I am Steve. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh right, sorry, you're on the you're on my third screen, so I found you.
Yeah, Councillor being Warwick, but it's the same declaration, though I am here representing the county council, so I guess that's obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to chairperson's announcements. You'll see in the agenda item number 9, I think it is. Just let me scan through my papers here. We had an item, traffic regulation orders, where I invited county council officers to join us. For various reasons, that offer has been declined. Jackie may like to say a few words now, or perhaps Jackie, you can cover it later on. What I'm suggesting is, rather than talking about the traffic regulation orders before we've heard from Carla, I think it would be better if we have that item after item 10, which is the roads implementation plan, which Carla will be talking through. And I think after that, it will be perhaps appropriate to have a few words from Councillor Porter, who I think is going to kind of talk through what she knows about the TROs and but act as a, if you like, a repository for members' questions. And
although it may be relevant if now Councillor Todd and Councillor Warwick are there, that and we're all four of us wrong, but it may be relevant that we all ask the same questions. However, yes, I have an email which talks about the timing, which is very helpful, which I think you've seen.
Okay. Councillor Warwick, did you want to say something there? I'll join in later on the TRO section.
Well, I would say I think that's very sensible. With the three of us have had a briefing recently. There's a lot of information that's around that TRO program and in fact the implementation program. So we'll do our best to answer questions. But well, I think take it at that item would be the most appropriate time. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So moving on to the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any matters arising from those minutes that are not going to be covered, or the subject matter isn't going to be covered in the agenda later on? If you've got any thoughts on that, please put up your hands. I have identified a couple of things just to draw out. I'm not seeing any hands go up. So where are we? There we go. I think, and this is perhaps something for Carla might be able to address it, which is from the last meeting in the minutes, the Southern Temporary Junction works. There was some work I think identified under the S278 agreement that the county's traffic signals team were working on something to improve the effectiveness of the Southern Junctions working, where there were, I'm not sure if there still are, some problems at peak traffic times. So I don't know, Carl, if you can pick that up when we come to your item, if you know anything about it. But that was one outstanding item. I think, Carla, if you could also talk, just reference later on, if you've been in touch with Headbourne Worthy Parish Council and the KBRA to promote the car club. If you haven't, then we can carry that one over for next time. But just, you know, maybe you can note that to cover off next later on. And there's one other item which I haven't, to be honest, set up or asked a City Council officer to talk about today, but it's the long-term management of the ecological amenity space. So perhaps if, Ruth, you know about the status on that, you can talk about it in a little while when I ask you to join us. And if you don't know about it, we can hold that one over for next time. And I think that was it in terms of what I saw. Anything else that I've missed that is a burning issue for you? Right. Okay. Excuse me while I grab my pen. Right, let's move on to public participation. And I think, have we got Mike Slynn on the call? Let me just have a look and see if I can find Mike. He's normally comes through when he's invited.
I haven't spotted him yet, Chair.
No. Okay. Right. We did send round his report. Obviously, as he's not here, we can't ask him to clarify any of the points in his report. Were there any particular points in that report that members read that you feel like you'd like some feedback to go back to him, or that concerned you that you want to raise? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So, yeah, I think we'll take that one as read. Right, and we'll move on to item number 6, which is an update from Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. Now, I believe I did see Councillor Waters join us. So, Councillor Waters, are you with us, or have you?
I am indeed, Councillor Cremoyson. Hello.
You've escaped, have you, from your?
I have. Yeah. I got out of school early tonight. That was quite good. So yeah. So obviously you've all, I'm assuming, read the report. So I don't know if you want me to talk to the report or if you want me to add anything to it.
If you can, Councillor Waters, just at least highlights, not necessarily verbatim.
I think, to be honest, the only thing that's coming up here is obviously the community governance review, and I think as a parish council, the key part of that we've talked about is essentially that we'd like to ensure that we've got some level of input into the CGR, which is what we've been talking about in regards to making sure that our voice is heard. I think in terms of the CGR, the one thing I will say that we've put forward very clearly is that one of the options is to become part of a town council. Now, obviously, that's up for consultation. Obviously, we're not expecting any results from that anytime soon. But we will say that the work we've been doing as a parish council, as Headbourne Worthy, the building of our community is very important to us. And so I think, obviously, we want to make it clear that as a parish council, we are very keen to keep Kings Barton and Headbourne Worthy at the moment, to ensure that we work closely as we do at the moment with Carla. And so obviously as a parish council, that's obviously our preference, is to carry on the work we've been doing with the with Carla in Kings Barton to try and ensure that work continues. And we're just a little bit concerned as that if you were in a bigger town council, some of that sort of community value that we've been putting in would be lost. And that's really the only thing that I'd like to just clarify in terms of the CGR. And also I mean that's really where we are with that. And in regards to the community building, we've obviously worked very closely with Carla to ensure that that's fit for purpose, and it's going to be a very good community facility for everyone to use, and hopefully that will be in place as soon as possible. So we've been working obviously with Carla to look at the internal workings of that. So that's really where we are with both of those aspects of it, and everything else on there is really sort of, it speaks for itself. So that's all we've got to add.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Waters, any questions from the floor on that item? I've got a question from Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Godfrey, do you want to unmute?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. I was interested to hear the Parish Council talk about the Community Governance Review, and wondered if they had discussed with the City Council Monitoring Officer or others about
as soon as possible. So we've been working obviously with Carla to look at the internal workings of that. So that's really where we are with both of those. Yeah, that's right. I think Councillor, I think Mr. Slim's got that playing at the moment.
Mike, can you mute your delay? You've got it on stream. That's it. So, gosh, Rob, you were in two different places at the same time. I know. I was quite impressed with myself there. Councillor Godfrey,
thank you. I wonder if the Parish Council have had discussions with the City Council about getting early sight of the proposed survey questions and commentary to accompany the survey, so that any work that the Parish Council will wish to do with their residents to keep them informed, can start in appropriate time.
If I can answer that, Councillor Godfrey, our clerk, Belinda Baker, has been in touch with David Blakemore from the team manager to look at what's going to happen in terms of that. And obviously, Councillor Cremoyes and Councillor Porter have come to our Kings Barton committee meetings, and we have discussed the how the questions will run, because obviously we want to give everybody a clear understanding of how, you know, or what every aspect of that governance review will look like. And of course, you know, we are very keen to ensure that the questions that are asked are going to give people an opportunity to look at every opportunity and every aspect of what's going to be happening there. So yeah, I know the clerk's been in touch, and she's going to be looking at the questions, and we've also had some feedback, obviously, from councillors Porter and Cremoyes regarding the CGR. I hope that sort of answers your question there.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
We've obviously got Winchester City Council Officer Steve Lincoln joining us later on in the agenda, who will no doubt talk in more depth about the CG. I've got Councillor Todd. You've got a question.
I was a bit surprised at how the question was framed. I mean, does that mean that you're opposed to the idea of a dedicated Kings Barton Parish Council that covers the footprint of Kings Barton, including the bit that's currently inside the city area? So you want to kind of keep things as they are? That's your preferred option, or you're going to wait until the consultation has gone a bit further?
If I answer that, Councillor Todd, yeah, obviously, the sort of anomalous area that's at the front of the development is one that we need to look at, but obviously we'd like everything to be incorporated into a Headbourne worthy parish council. We think at the moment one of the conversations we've had is that a Kings Barton parish council in its own right would be quite challenging, considering the amount of occupations we have at the moment. I think it's a little bit premature to look at only sort of, you know, a third of the estate just over being built and then having its own parish council. I think until you've got the full occupation, I think that would be a difficult one for us to sort of go with. But we're not opposed to any options if that's what the residents want. I mean, that's obviously what we have to look at there. The democratic process is that we go with what sort of comes out from the consultation. But I think ultimately we'd feel that as a parish council, I think we've done a lot of work with Carla, particularly to try and ensure that we have a sense of community in Kings Barton. And I think the difficulty is if you then look at Headbourne Worthy as a separate parish council, it's in what it used to be Headbourne Worthy. It's a very small parish, and I think we've sort of got quite a lot of councillors now in Headbourne Worthy on the parish council that are Kings Barton based as well. So I think that there is part of us that are looking clearly at sort of, you know, the development of 2,000 houses in its own right. But I think at the moment what we're looking for is essentially Headbourne Worthy Parish Council potentially staying as it is at the moment. And that's, you know, how we've been discussing it as it stands. Does that make sense?
I know obviously this is an open process, and what matters is what the public come back with, although other stakeholders, it's very important as well, and nobody's being railroaded into anything. So it will matter what people say. And it is the balance. I suppose there's the watch out. I suppose the thing you need to think about is that if we have local government reorganisation and unitaries, and we're already hearing from other authorities where they're just cancelling parishing programmes and community governance reviews because of the financial concerns in the future. So this may be your only chance to do it. And that's a thought to bear in mind, because the financial environment from 3 years' time is very, very different. And the cost of a new CGR may be something which just disappears into the too hard category.
Right. Some of that, some various opinions expressed there. I think Steve Lincoln's going to talk a bit more about the community governance review, what the status is, etc., etc. One thing so we'll have that. I think it may be the next item on the agenda, actually, or almost the next item on the agenda. So we're going to get there pretty soon. It might be that we want to just, ask some questions around that with when Steve's actually done his pitch. What I will say, and I'll ask Steve if he can clarify this, is that within the note that was shared round to all members, there was a statement that related to the commuter sum that implied that if if Kings Barton were to end up in the town, that the town could then decide to spend it anywhere. That statement is, as I understand it, untrue. I have forwarded on the advice from the monitoring officer in relation to that point. The commuter sum is ring fenced to Kings Barton. So that, you know, among all the reasons, all the factors that are going on here, I think it's important that, you know, that particular point is straightened out. It may or may not affect opinions of people in Kings Barton, but it does need to be presented in terms of what the facts are. But I'll ask Steve if, you know, if he can confirm later on when he does his, you know, session, whether I've got that right. Rob, you want to do you want to come back to me on that, or hold it until we hear what Steve has to say?
If I just clarify that, if that's okay, Councillor Fremoysen, in the fact that I think what the issue that, or the concern was, is that the commuted sum, when it was first put through from Carla to Headbourne Worthy Parish Council, 75,000 of that was already spent by Winchester on the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust fencing. I mean, and that is where the concern sort of, I think, comes from, in the fact that money that was meant to be commuted sum was actually spent. So, and that's from our clerk, didn't feel it was ring fenced in the first place. That's obviously, as you're aware, David Blakemore's come back to the clerk as well, and I understand that you've also been in conversation. So obviously that's just a concern that we have. But I think the other factor there really, regarding the commuted sum, is the work we've been doing with Carla as a community. I wonder if we were part of a wider town council, how much input we'd have from residents of Kings Barton into that in a much bigger town council. And I think that if I just raise that as the concern that we have, that's obviously something to look at for the future.
I think I understand your concerns about voice, but let's you know, we've got some issues teased out of that and some concerns. We'll come on to CGR in just a minute. Okay. Mike, I can see you've got your hand up, but we've kind of gone past your report, and members have read your report, and there weren't actually any questions. So so I want to move us on to, you know, so we get through the agenda tonight. So we'll be talking about the community governance review in a little bit when Steve Lincoln has talked it through from his perspective. Okay, Mike, is that okay?
Can I just say that I was given two links, and unfortunately I must have clicked on the one which was just for sound only, and I was desperately trying to get in to tell you I was here, but I clicked on another link and now I'm with you. So I'm apologise for not being with you when I should have been, but I would like some answers to the questions that were raised in our report.
Okay. Well, okay. There were quite a lot of questions and quite a lot of points raised in there. Okay, well, let's see how we get on in terms of, you know, most of those I think will get covered in the meeting. So, yeah, I mean, you raised the issue of community governance review. That's on the agenda, so you'll hear about that shortly. Item number 1, you raised, you're asking that the City Council changes the boundary. I'm not sure quite how you envisage we do that, whether we do it by decree, but basically one of the functions of a community governance review is to address that issue. So, you know, item number 1, the City Council is doing what it can do in that regard. Item number 3, that was very interesting. Members didn't raise any questions about it. It's not on our agenda tonight. This is the issue around the relationship with Anthem. You mentioned that you're going to raise it on their AGM. I think this is one where it would be interesting to offline hear more about the specifics, because I think it might be an interesting topic for a future agenda, although possibly technically it's outside of the terms of reference of the Kings Barton Forum. But, you know, let's we can take that one offline. We're going to cover the car park part of the park and ride side of it. It's in the agenda, and the Mugger or Mooger, depending on how you like to say it, is also referenced in the agenda. As for the LC whip side of it, I guess, okay, I'll give you a question back on that, Mike. what is it, never mind whether there is an LC whip or not, what is it that you want the LC whip to deliver that isn't already being delivered? Because that would be a more interesting question to be focused on.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond on that. Yes, we wrote with a number of issues that would improve the situation for residents who wish to walk or cycle into the city centre, and it doesn't appear as though they've been addressed, or indeed that there are any improvements proposed. So we're worried about that. If I could bring you back to the other point, the parish council boundaries, right? Well, we felt there are many residents who are not in the Hebburn Worthy Parish Council, and we cannot vote. We cannot vote for councillors, and this is wrong. We're told we cannot vote for councillors.
So, Mike.
So this does need sorting.
You're right. You're right. You can't vote in Hebburn Worthy. You can vote for councillors because you are in the St Barnabas ward, and you can vote for councillors in that ward. The community governance review, if a city district council such as Winchester City Council thinks there is a good case to address a boundary issue like this, it does not have the power to do it by decree. So you can't just lobby us, and if we all agree we think that's a good idea, we can't just do it. The city council, the district council, to use its generic term, has to go through what's called a community governance review, and the terms of reference of the community governance review that has been set up include addressing that boundary issue. So it's all wrapped up in that community governance review. So your issue is being addressed it already, because we've been lobbying hard for this CGR. So there isn't anything else that the members of this forum can actually lobby for that will bring that forward any sooner. So I hope you'll be, and I hope that maybe Mr. Lincoln can just, assure us all that that is the case as part of the community governance review. So is that okay? We'll come to that later.
Your response is understood, but it's not a good one for us residents. Thank you anyway.
Well, the City Council is working as hard as it can on that matter and in line with legislation. So can we move on to Ruth Beard? Could you just update us on the occupation numbers and just perhaps some of the highlights from the S106 agreement? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the latest council tax records for the Kings Barton site show 695 units are now registered on the site, with approximately 5 of those currently unoccupied. So we've updated the Section 106 legal agreement schedule to reflect this latest occupation figure, and this was published as part of the agenda pack for the meeting. There are no further obligations that have been triggered since the last forum based on these figures. However, there are a few that are coming up imminently or have already been agreed in advance of the trigger that I can update on, if that's helpful.
That would be great.
Yeah, so the first one is the review of the car club scheme for the site, which was due by 700 units. Carla actually presented a review of the car club at one of the previous forums, which indicated a lack of demand for a second car at the moment. So this has already been discussed and is being formally agreed with Hampshire. So I understand that will be signed off fairly soon. The other trigger, which has actually been agreed ahead of time, is a 725 unit trigger, which is the approval of the Highways Implementation Programme by Hampshire. And I know you've already referenced this, Chair, in the run up to the meeting. It's effectively a construction timetable for the various remaining main highway works for the site, including the junctions of Harestock Lane, Stony Lane and Winchester Avenue. So this was agreed between Carla and HCC mid-October, and again a copy has been circulated as part of the agenda pack for the meeting, and Carla are due to present a bit more detail on that plan as part of their section in the agenda. In terms of later triggers, the next one really is a 750 unit trigger, which is a little way off, which is a secondary education contribution of 3 million to the county. But again, that's a little way off, just something to be mindful of, something coming up. Otherwise, yeah, I can't see any triggers that are due imminently at the moment, Chair. You did ask about the latest position in relation to, I think it was Barton Meadows, is that correct?
Yes.
Which is on the schedule. I haven't heard anything since that was last updated a month or two ago, in that the land was being transferred from Carla to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust. I'm not sure if that's been completed, but I'm sure that Carla can probably provide the latest position. In fact, I think Alison's just put her hand up.
Okay, Alison, if you'd like to close that one out while we're here.
Yes, the update, we're still progressing the legals with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Trust. It's taking a bit longer than we'd anticipated, but we've got a bit of traction now, so hopefully we'll be able to provide an update, but we are still progressing that. There was just a few matters, some legal issues we're just addressing.
Thank you. Okay, Ruth, does that complete your submission?
Yeah. Yes, that's the update on the 106 position. Yeah,
brilliant. Any questions for Ruth at this point on that? Not seeing any. In which case, Ruth, I think you've escaped well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for going through that. I think you're just back from holiday as well, so
yeah,
you're on top of all of that. Okay. I think now let's move over to Steve Lincoln, City Council officer, who's going to talk us through the community governance review. And hopefully you can pick up some of those points that have been raised so far, Steve, but obviously make sure you cover the points that you intended to. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I assume you can hear me and hopefully you can see the slides.
I can hear you, I can see the slides. If anyone else can't see the slides or hear you, please put your hand up. Just keep going, Steve.
Great. Okay. So obviously I feel like we've talked a little on this already and may have stolen a little of my thunder in terms of some of the slides. So I'll move on past things if we've already discussed them, but hopefully can answer one or two of the questions that have already come up. So in terms of the governance review, I won't dwell too long on this one because I think people will probably be aware, but you know, the progress to date, this all originated from a request from the town forum. We've taken it through various stages that we needed to do internally in terms of council governance for the process, and have engaged with the relevant parish councils. There's a few parish councils who are involved or affected by this, so we've engaged with them at different sort of stages, including a meeting last week where they they were provided with an update on the process, at where we're at with the process and sort of next steps and how things go forward. So hopefully there's no surprises here to the parish councils involved, and to colleagues at Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. I think Councillor Morris mentioned in the chat, but the consultation was actually launched today, so sometime mid-afternoon. So the consultation is actually live, which is in line with the date that we communicated to everybody as our intention, the key stakeholders, our intention to get that out there. So that is now live, and that will run through until very nearly the end until just before Christmas. As I mentioned, consultation, launched today. We're hoping that most people would choose to respond via the online questionnaire. That is the place where all the information is, and it will mean that the sort of analysis and all the work to pull the results together and make sense of them will be as efficient and effective as possible for us. But we do recognise that that's not going to work for everybody, so there will be opportunities for telephone or paper-based responses for people who require that. So they'll need to just let us know if that's something that they require, and we can make that possible. And just again to reassure people, we're using an external agency who are expert in all matters consultation and engagement, who are supporting us with this, both in terms of making sure that we've prepared and formulated the questionnaire in the most sort of neutral and sensible way to get the right results, or to get the results that we need to take this forward, and also because they've got the capacity to do the work in terms of crunching all the numbers when the results come in. So they'll be processing all the information on behalf for us and providing us with sort of summary results that we can then decide how to proceed with. In terms of communications, it's obviously really important, and we're really keen to make sure we hear from as many people as possible. So there'll be a wide range of communication about the consultation throughout the course of the nearly 2 months that it will be open for. So I'm not going to read through them all, but you can see them there, a wide range of things through electronic channels, through word of mouth. Very importantly, and I'll come on to that a little bit more in a minute, there'll be a leaflet dropped to every affected household. And by affected, that also includes, as an example, it's not just households within Kings Barton, all households within Headbourne Worthy will also be mailed, because Headbourne Worthy parish, the wider parish is affected by the outcome of the sort of the consideration around Kingsworthy. So everybody will get something through the post. And as will always happen with these things, lots of this will spread through word of mouth. So we're very keen for parish council, for resident association to spread the word through their own local networks, channels, that this consultation's out there, and everybody do everything to encourage as many people as possible to respond. We obviously need all communications to come back through, all responses from people to come back through that formal consultation process, because that will enable us to address the responses in a sort of consistent and fair way. The one thing I would add to that, and Councillor Waters mentioned, that the parish council has a particular view. There is the opportunity for key stakeholders. So the parish council might want to send us its own response. And for organisations such as the parish council, then we have said that we will be able to accept an email from them. We very much don't want emails and free-form responses from individuals, because we just can't process that and make a sensible job of analysing the information. But the parish council and other stakeholders similar to that, who represent significant numbers of people, they can respond to us via email. And the email information is on the website, where you will find where the links are available, and that's all on our website. So we'll be monitoring the responses that we get. We'll be asking people to identify postcode, but also broad areas that they come from. So which parish are they, Kings Barton? So we can identify the responses that we get, and we'll be able to analyse the responses and see how they differ depending on where people come from. So clearly the question about the future of Kings Barton and what part of, or how the governance of Kings Barton might be arranged in future, the most important people to express the view on that are the people from Kings Barton. So we'll be able to understand whether views differ depending on where people come from. That's really important to us. And it'll also mean that we can understand if there are particular areas or groups or types of people who we're really not hearing from. Because one of the other things that the company I mentioned can do for us is do a little bit of targeted engagement or promotion to try and make sure we get a good representative response from everywhere. So that's something else that we can do as the process goes on, and we'll be monitoring that on a regular basis to understand where the responses are coming from. So I mentioned the leaflet. So this is what people will see coming through their doors at some point. It won't all happen immediately. You can understand every household covering the entire area of the review is quite a significant area. So so that will go out over the course of a number of weeks, and everybody will have that before the final week of November. But from that point onwards, there's still another 4 or 5 weeks of the consultation being open. So everyone will have this, but it's all up now on our website, and it's you'll see it. It's the latest news item on the homepage of the council website, and all of this information is available from there, as is a link to where you can go and submit your response. But that's what it looks like. That's what people will be receiving. So keep your eyes open for that. Alongside this, we're going to be running some drop-in engagement events for people who might want to just find out a little bit more, who've got questions, who've got things they might want to get into a little bit more detail, or there's things that they don't quite understand. So we're running a couple of events in the city centre, in the Guildhall, running one in the north of the city, Henry Beaufort, and one in the south at Badger Farm, which will hopefully then give everybody the opportunity to not be too far away. They're covering slightly different times, so we've got one on a Saturday in the city, and they cover slightly different hours. So hopefully there's something there that should accommodate anybody who wants to come along and actually speak to somebody about this in person. So and we're also going to make opportunities. We have flagged up these dates to the parish councils, and we'll welcome the parish councils getting involved with these events. We'll be in touch to discuss a little bit more detail over the next week or so. Again, picking up on Councillor Watter's point, we very much want the parish councils to be there to reflect their perspective on things, and their place in the picture of governance covering the city area. Finally, just this isn't really essential in terms of the kind of the current state of play in the position, but it's just a useful reminder of the sort of roadmap through the whole process, which is quite a long and winding one. So we're obviously currently at the point where towards the bottom of October, November, where the consultation's begun. That will run through to December, and the process works its way through to the point where it will be next September, October, so in just under a year's time, when we'll reach some form of conclusion and draft some recommendations that would go to the full council for a final decision. Actually, that's probably a good point to just pick up the point from Mr. Slynn. And if I understood it right, I think what was being referred to was the issue of the number of councillors representing Headbourne-Worthy Parish Council. If I'm wrong, then please let me know. I think that was the issue.
I was muted. No, it was the issue of the boundary. Mike is making a point which I actually agree with, which is it's a little bit odd that we have a boundary running through Kings Barton. That means that 60 odd homes are in a different, I'm going to say, an unparished area at the moment, in a different area, first tier local governments to the rest of it. So that was the point I was raising.
Okay, that gets picked up at stage two of the process. So this initial stage is around broad principles around whether or not there should be a new parish council for the town area, and if there is, then whether other neighbouring areas such as Kings Barton should or shouldn't be accommodated within that. With Kings Barton, there's also the additional separate issue of whether or not there could be a separate parish council representing just the Kings Barton area. Once we get to the second stage of the consultation, which you'll see there is starts in May 2026, that second stage is where we would be promoting the sort of full and detailed boundaries that would apply to governance across the entire area under question for the future. So that's where we would pick up those issues around the sort of fine detail and pick up some of those sort of anomalous areas, such as the triangle of land that currently is part of Kings Barton, but in governance terms sits outside. So that would definitely be picked up at stage two, along with a number of other more kind of technical issues around the sort of the size, shape, style, type of council that might emerge from this process. And that's everything that I had to share with you at that point. So let me just stop sharing. Hopefully I've covered any questions that were asked previously, but happy to pick up any now.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Sorry, that was just the moment when my wife turned up and the dog decided to launch into a chorus. So members, have I got any questions for Steve here? I'm sure there will be at least one, if not two or three. I've got Councillor Godfrey. Lead on.
Thank you very much. Two questions. One, I don't understand the logic of Steve's response about the 60 homes east of the Andover Road, which are currently in the unparished area. That there is no specific question in the survey which deals with those 60 homes. Whether they should be part of a new town council or not is covered. But whether or not they should be part of a new the existing Headbourne Worthy Parish Council or part of a future Kings Barton Parish Council does seem to be really very important, and I'm not sure why that question hasn't been reflected in this first phase consultation. And if residents wanted to respond to that, how would they do that? And the second is a difference in wording between the two very similar situations in Harestock and in Kings Barton. In the Kings Barton wording for area B, it talks about residents may wish to choose to remain as part of Kings Barton, as part of Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. But no such wording exists for Harestock residents, where we were expecting the wording to say residents may choose to remain part of Littleton and Harestock Parish Council. Why is that difference present?
Okay, can Steve, I think the way I'd interpret the first part of that is, will the people who live in the unparished part of Kings Barton get asked the questions in relation to, a number of choices? I believe they will get a choice, they'll be able to express preference towards one of three options as an outcome. So they would be able to, at that point, show an interest in the two options that are different to where they currently sit. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, everybody will be asked the same questions and have the opportunity to answer the same questions in whichever way they see fit. We considered all sorts of ways of how we might address, or whether we needed to address, that small rectangle and those homes within that differently through a different question or a differently worded question. Yeah. And it was complicating the picture, bearing in mind that the same questionnaire is being made available to everybody. It became, you'll see, if you haven't already seen the questionnaire, you'll see it's already a fairly complicated picture, and we've, I think, done a decent job of keeping it as clear and simple as possible. It risked becoming a very complicated and hard to decipher picture. What is going to happen is one of the things that is upon the City Council as the primary authority undertaking the review is to determine the outcome based on a series of factors, a very important one being the views and opinions of local people and stakeholders. But there are also some kind of broad criteria that apply to a governance review and are expected to be built into the final recommendations. And a key one amongst that is for the final governance arrangements to be clear, logical and effective. Now, the view amongst those people that have been working on this and a range of stakeholders who've been involved in the conversation at the moment is that there seems to be a unanimous view that one of the sensible things is for the whole of Kings Barton to eventually come together under a single form of governance. Now, what's very clearly still up for debate is whether that is a new part of a new town council for Winchester, whether that's a separate parish council, or equally likely whether that is to remain under the Headbourne Worthy. But the view seems to be fairly unanimous that there is that all of Kings Barton should be governed as one. and that is something which will, as I mentioned earlier about the second stage of the consultation being where the fine detail is addressed, that would be set out in there as part of the consultation. But that's why we've not answered the question separately, because the view at the moment is that there's certainly a feeling that that would be a good and sensible outcome of this, whatever governance shape it takes, is that Kings Barton is a single unified entity. Now, what we are going to do, though, to help clarify and make this really clear for people in that rectangle area, is they will be getting a separate letter communicating to them, explaining the difference, explaining how things are slightly different for them because they currently sit within the unparished area and are effectively already part of the town. So they will understand how things do look slightly different for them. It'll explain why we want them to respond in the way we want them to respond and identify themselves through the questionnaire. And then when we come to the second stage, again, we can communicate separately with them and just make sure that everybody's clear and understanding. So they will have the opportunity. But one of the things that, as I say, we as the legal authority will do in the end will be to come to a conclusion that makes for clear, sound, effective governance for the entire area. So hopefully that answers that question as best I can.
Sounds good, Steve. Regarding the second part of the question,
the second point,
if I could I want to just preface that, just to remind us that the terms of reference for the Kings Barton Forum are to look at the delivery of Kings Barton and what that means. But I think it would be interesting if you could just briefly talk about why I mean, some of us have not yet had a chance to look at the actual survey itself to see what the wordings actually are for the different parts of it. But if you could just touch on that, but just bear in mind that really what we need to, as the Kings Barton Forum, do is make sure we are comfortable about the community governance review as it applies to Kings Barton only. And then if there are other questions about other parts of, adjacent areas, there probably is another forum that you could point people to ask the questions there.
Yes, it's a good point Councillor Godfrey raises. I've seen lots of versions of this. It's gone through lots of iterations, and I wasn't completely aware that the wording was slightly different. There are lots of reasons why things are slightly different in the document. As an example, Kings Barton, there's the additional option of the separate parish council, so it's not exactly the same wording for every area throughout. So I can't actually answer your question right here, right now, Councillor Godfrey, but I will take that back. Let me take that back to colleagues and check if there was a reason why that was, and we'll come back and communicate that back to you ASAP. Yeah,
and would that, Steve, would that be a matter? Would the right forum for that to be the town forum, or is it a different venue? I don't want the Kings Barton Forum to suddenly become the place where everything gets discussed.
To be honest, I'm not sure there is a right forum for that question, because that's obviously an issue that applies specifically to Littleton and Harestock Parish and its part in this process. I mean, I can just assure Councillor Godfrey that I will take that issue back first thing tomorrow morning. So we'll be able to we'll pick that up, address it, we'll communicate that back. And if there's a need to still pursue it further, Councillor Godfrey or others can sort of raise that sort of directly with officers involved, or I mean the town forum would be another place to raise it, although obviously it applies to the Littleton Harestock Parish rather than the town area specifically. So but I will take that back and raise that as a yes.
Right, Mike, you've raised a couple of issues in relation to the CTR in your report, so I'm going to give you, the floor to come in and just fire in a question to Steve here.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, like Councillor Godfrey, I'm concerned, and we're concerned, the Residents Association, that not all residents will be able to identify that they do want the 50 or 60 houses that are not in Kings Barton, not in Hebburn Worthy Parish Council currently included. So that's a worry. Can I just put it to you then that it may very well be useful for you if you have the Kings Barton Resident Association view, which will be democratically provided. Would that be acceptable to you? Can we write to you with the Resident Association view?
Yeah, that's. I think, you know, I didn't mention the Resident Association by name earlier, Mike, but you know, I sort of referred to those sort of representative type of organisations who would clearly have a view on such matters. So I touched with one or two colleagues on this. That would be fine. That would be acceptable. What we'll do when we're analysing the results is, you know, clearly it's very hard to sort of reflect some of those kind of free form qualitative responses that we would get. So when we come to present the responses, we will have some statistical information that reflects the number of people who've replied in certain ways to certain questions, but we will also be able to include some narrative that reflects the views that key stakeholders such as the parish council or the resident association have made. We won't be able to, you know, necessarily in the overall sort of piece of things sort of reflect them verbatim, but you know, we will reflect the key views that are expressed, and they will help inform the kind of the way that we take that forward through stage 2 and beyond. So yeah, that's fine. Resident Association can submit that. There's an email address which is cgr@winchester.gov.uk, to which you can send your response.
If I'm remembering right, Steve, I believe the Kings Barton Residents Association was one of the identified stakeholders in a list that included parish councils in the terms of reference. Is that right?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah. Pretty sure it was, and I've got Jackie, Councillor Porter, coming up with coming up with the next question. So I believe Jackie will have noticed that as well, because we were both had different stages. We were at different parts of the terms of reference. So Councillor Porter, do you want to come join us?
Thank you. Not you, Steve, but Mr. Lincoln mentioned when he talked about they'll be writing to affected residents, and affected residents in this case are Headbourne-worthy. But everybody tends to say Kingsworthy because Kingsworthy is another parish within the ward, as is Worthy Down. And Worthy Down is another part of a parish within South Wonston within the ward. So can you just clarify exactly who will get the written letter? Oh, I've got a cat around me. Who will get the written letter, please?
Yes, I did see your comment and wasn't sure whether that meant that I'd said Kingsworthy, because if I did, then I didn't mean to. No,
you meant to say Headbourne-worthy.
It was Headbourne-worthy, yes. So there was a consideration as to whether the people affected solely included those within the areas in question. So, you know, in other words, it would only be the Kings Barton bit of Headbourne-worthy, but the final view is that, you know, everybody within the parish of Headbourne-worthy is potentially affected by the outcome of that. So every household within the parish of Headbourne-worthy will receive that leaflet through the door, as will be the case in Littleton and Harestock as well.
But everybody across the district will be allowed to will be able to respond.
Everybody can respond, but only the people who are, if you like, directly affected by the outcome will receive the leaflet. But yeah, everybody, and again, we're asking people to identify, so we know, and you know, the views of everybody will be reflected in the final analysis, but clearly the views of those people directly affected will be the ones that will be most concerned to take on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie, and thanks, Steve. Right, I don't see any more questions, so I think, Steve, thank you very much for that. I'm really pleased to see this community governance review has been shaped in the way it has been to allow a sort of community governance review for Kings Barton alongside the Winchester element of it. Appreciate, you know, the scale of Winchester is so much bigger than Kings Barton, so but you know, for people in Kings Barton and Headbourne-worthy, and indeed the Kings Barton people in the unparished area is very important. We have got one more question here, unless it's a comment. Councillor Morris.
Hello, yes. It's just is it possible in the survey on question 5, it includes a sort of a piece of information and clarifying that if people vote or ask for Harestock to be part of the town form, it will no longer be part of the existing Littleton Harestock parish, and whether you could have a similar sort of explanatory note for question 6, that if people ask for Kings Barton to be part of the town council, that it would be by implication that would also not be part of the Kings Barton, part of the Headbourne Worthy Parish Council. If you could add the similar sort of explanatory note for question 6, is that possible?
Steve.
I'll take that back alongside Councillor Godfrey's question. I know we have to be careful in terms of changing things once the consultation is live. Having said that, that's not actually part of the question. It's part of the supporting narrative that helps people understand the question. So let me take that back. I thought there was something that had been included. Now, I don't know whether, because there's the 3 questions, I thought there was something that had been put in which talks about, I haven't got it open in front of me. I'm just going to try and see if I can quickly open it while we're here. But yeah, I thought there was something that talked about
my assumption, Steve, here is that most members will not have had the chance to have had a look at the survey in detail. So I'm not keen to open up to lots of questions about any perceived imperfections in the wording and so on. I know it's a heavily regulated process by which these things are created, and it's not just driven by city council officers. There are independent eyes on it.
There are. But I will take both of those comments back just to make sure that colleagues and the experts who've helped put this together with us are clear, and I'll definitely feed those back. Councillor Godfrey, Councillor Morris. Chair, I just noticed, and I don't know if you want me to just address it, there's a question in the comments from Councillor Rutter, which I can quickly answer as well.
If you've got the answer to that, that would be great.
I have, yeah. So Councillor Rutter, the issue about the number of councillors, parish councillors for Headbourne Worthy Parish Council is something which would also be picked up as part of the second stage of the consultation. So where we talk about detailed boundaries and things, and I mentioned there's various other kind of more technical matters which are around the type of council, that would also include the number of councillors. And it was one of the reasons that we were very keen to include Kings Barton within the scope of this review, because we're very aware that Headbourne Worthy Parish Council for some time now has been making representations around this issue, and by having Kings Barton within scope of the review, that enables us, whatever the outcome in terms of the preferred approach in terms of which type of council, whether it's the town, whether it's a new parish, or whether it's Headbourne Worthy, that enables us at stage 2 to address and deal with any issues around numbers of parish councillors. So we can definitely pick that up as part of stage 2.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm going to call a halt to that part of the session, Steve, if that's okay with you. As I tried to before, and then we have one more question. So let's move on to. So thank you very much, Steve, for sharing. Giving us a bit of a briefing on the CGR. I think that's very helpful, and some of us will be looking at the actual survey either later on tonight or tomorrow, I'm sure. We know who to contact if we have questions. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which was going to be the TRO, but I'm going to jump over that into the roads implementation plan and invite Carla to join us on the floor, so to speak. And once we've gone through that section, focused on the road side of things, guys, I'll come back to the traffic regulation orders, where hopefully we can have a little bit of a discussion and inform Councillor Porter of any questions we may have in that regard. So please give me a nudge if I forget to come back to the TRO part of it. So Alison, are you leading on, or Rupert, or Lance?
Rupert will take the lead on this, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Lance.
So we've got, for those of you who don't know, we've got 3 representatives. Carla here, we've got Alison Thompson, who is, according to my notes, Head of Planning Southern, Lance Else, who's Technical Director, and Rupert Woodcott, who's Head of Technical. So Rupert, I think you're in the hot seat.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, all. We've prepared a brief presentation just to add a little bit more colour and understanding to the implementation plan. So if you don't mind me sharing my screen and taking you through, I think it's 3 slides we have here, which will hopefully give the listeners a bit of a broader understanding of some of the key areas of the diversion of the Andover Road. Just on this first slide, you can see that there are 8 broad kind of works packages, phases, if you like, that are associated with the new Winchester Avenue and the landscaping that will replace the existing Andover Road. 5 of those, the first 4 there, and the southern, which one? The Northern Junction on-site works, so the 5th one down, are associated with the Winchester Avenue, and then the Northern Junction and Southern Junction, the Northern Junction off-site works, the Southern Junction and Stony Lane, along with the Andover Road cycleway, are the connections into and the works associated with the Andover Road. The next slide here is the implementation programme, which I understand that may have been shared with the councillors prior to the meeting in the pack that they received. This programme has been built or pulled together with Hampshire County Council and the highways team there, their support. We've used our consultants, our professional engineers, along with our contractors to pull this programme together and give us the most accurate understanding of the timings associated with the works. So each of those headings there represents one of the lines that we showed in the previous slide. But behind this sits a much more complicated programme, somewhere in the region of 300 lines of programming that we've used Hampshire's planning internal planners to pull together. And there'll be lines on there that will show the TRO applications as they go in and when they're determined, so that we get to the overall programme, which is the roads opening ultimately opening in Jan 29. So that's the end of the programme of works that you'll see out there when the Andover Road is landscaped and opened up. The next slide shows the various phases that we've got as we go through the site. The nature of the works means that we've already started. So the first phase, which if you can see my cursor I'm hovering over, is known to us as 1A on the Spine Road. It's the first phase of the Winchester Avenue that comes in at the south here. They're pretty much complete now, and we're about to start. So we jump over to 1B. We know it's 1B, but the north end of the site, which will run from October, from November through to May 26, when we'll start to run down through the site, finishing off our highways works on the Winchester Avenue, which will then allow us to move into the northern junction at the top of the site in January 27, and then moving through to November 27, when we'll open the southern junction here on the site, after which we'll then be able to start works on the Andover Road and the landscaping there. And just to help put it into a bit more context, the last slide actually sets out those phases and gives a bit of an understanding as to why, if anybody had noticed, we have a bit of a gap between the on-site works with the Winchester Avenue and then being able to start the northern junction when we tie in, and that's down to the road, down to a series of elements that we have to work through with Hampshire County Council. So we have road safety audits, any remedials that are picked up on the road before Hampshire will actually take that road onto maintenance and allow us to open it. So we will not be allowed to start running traffic down through the Winchester Avenue, traffic from outside, so diverted traffic off of the Andover Road until the road safety audits are complete and we've undertaken any remedials to ensure that it's safe for traffic to drive down through the Winchester Avenue.
And that process, from a timeline, may seem like a long period, but obviously due to the nature of the road, Hampshire are asking us to go through this robust process in alignment with themselves, so that they need to be absolutely happy that a road is fit for purpose to be opened before that we can start diverting all the traffic through the site.
That's the slides that we've got.
That's great, Rupert.
Hopefully that's helpful.
If you could just come back to that that last slide, which I think is, I mean, the other slides are great, but in terms of visualizing the actual shape of the road and so on, but this is in terms of, if you like, high level milestones that folks can get their heads around. I've got a couple of questions already on the call. So if you're up for let's just invite Councillor Batho to come in with his question for you. Councillor Batho, sorry. You there?
I think you might be on mute, Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There was quite a delay in actually unmuting. I just wanted to clarify, in previous meetings, you've commented that the top surface of the Spine Road would only be complete when all of the construction traffic was, sort of not then requiring it. So just clarifying then, by July 26, are you suggesting then that all of the construction work for any of the associated housing will have actually been complete, or at a stage where you'll not need to have heavy vehicles running across the Spine Road?
No, that's not how this is proposed now. I don't know the discussions that were held previously, but where we've reached the position we've reached with Hampshire is that a road will have to be completed in its entirety prior to them allowing us to run any traffic through the site. And there's going to be potentially an extended maintenance period on the Spine Road, on the Winchester Avenue, due to the nature of the construction works that will be going on. And then when the final adoption takes place, if there are any remedial works that need to be undertaken to the surfacing, etc., then we will have to undertake those works prior to the road being formally adopted by HCC.
Okay, Jackie, Councillor Porter, do you want to come in?
Could you say that last sentence again? Because actually my question was about adoption dates. So although the road has to be completed to adoption standards before the road actually can be used, have you got any predicted adoption dates for all of this?
We haven't got any formally agreed adoption dates, but what has been discussed over the past 3 to 6 months is it could be potentially a 2-year maintenance period. Hampshire have made it clear that they would review it as the development progresses, and should they feel they need a longer period than that due to the status of work, then that is something that they may ask us to do. But currently we would anticipate a 2-year maintenance period from the time the road is opened.
So, but my understanding is that you can open the road even though it's not adopted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
as long as it's safe to do so. So the road safety audits come back clear.
Yeah, as long as that's clear.
Yeah. And we're working with Hampshire how the road will be maintained. All of this, there's a lot of discussions going on in the background, but they haven't been formalised yet.
No, okay, that's fair. That's clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warwick.
Yeah, just on that theme, I think it'd be helpful to clarify during that sort of post-opening monitoring period whether that would include safety audits. So if something wasn't working for whatever reason, could that be changed within that 12 or 24-month monitoring period?
Yes, there will be initial safety audits undertaken prior to the road opening, but there will be further road safety audits undertaken during the maintenance period so that HCC can understand how the road is working, and should anything be flagged up throughout those throughout that audit process, and we'll obviously have to address those.
There's quite an extensive monitoring program that we will be signing up to that ensures that the road is behaving in exactly the way the design intent expected it to.
Would that include a sort of monitoring committee, or would that be through this forum as well? I don't know how, would there be kind of residents' opportunity to comment, or is it just purely on a sort of road safety audit basis?
There will be a formal safety audit basis, but should anybody have any specific or particular areas of concern, then please make us aware and we will obviously consider those.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Todd. Oh, you're muted, Martin.
So my question is the monitoring process. I think I've understood this from county officers, but I don't know your involvement in it. One of the big areas that people are concerned to see monitored is the effect on nearby roads. And in particular, I think there's a lot of interest in what the impact is likely to be on Berwick Road, for example, and Priors Dean Road, and Berwick Avenue and various and Berwick Avenue as well. So is that part of the monitoring process as well, to see whether there are other changes that are needed, or does that, I think the county have said they will be doing it, but I just wanted to check whether you're including that in the discussions?
No, that isn't something that's been discussed with ourselves. I believe that any monitoring that the county will be doing in that regard will be separate to the monitoring of the Winchester Avenue itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's probably something I've had it said to me informally that that's the case, but it'd be quite useful to get it on the record somewhere, just clarity about that. But that's maybe for a future meeting and a question to Hampshire.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of question that would have been really handy if our friends were here. Not that I'm going to keep banging on about this. Right. So Lance and Rupert and Alison, I've got a chicken and egg question here, which looking at this schedule here, we've got the bit between 1A and the north part. That's all going to happen and be done by July 26, which, oh gosh, that isn't actually that far away. And then there's safety audits. I'm intrigued here, and you can't, from what I've understood, you can't have the sort of Andover Road kind of redirected into this until all the safety audits have been completed. But until the traffic comes through, you're not really seeing how it will really perform in practice. So there's a little bit of a chicken egg thing there, and I would guess that you go through some safety audits when you haven't got the traffic going through. Then you have to do the work on the junctions, and eventually, you know, by January 29, the traffic can come through. Presumably, did I hear right that the monitoring and further safety audits would happen after January 29? Is that a bit that's in this?
So we'll know. So as we open, before we can open the Winchester Avenue, before we tie in the northern and southern junctions, we will have undertaken stage 3 road safety audits on that new section of road to make sure it performs as they're tied in together the way the design is expecting them to. But you're absolutely right, Chair, that as we open up the northern junction and the southern junction, there will be further safety audits to see how those start to behave and perform, to make sure it's all safe, and that's all tied into this ongoing monitoring regime, which is a lot more onerous and necessary for a road diversion of this nature. So yeah, it's a rigorous process that we will be expected to follow and go through to ensure that as we introduce new sections of road, it's all safe and it's all working, and we're making any alterations that are necessary to deliver that.
Okay, so possibly from the point of view of the, if you like, the experience of local people, they might at times see what looks like a road that you could be driving down, but actually because it hasn't gone through all the road safety audits and all the, if you like, desk work that needs to be done, it can't actually be open for, you know, could be there for several months. That's the sort of experience that people might see at times during that time period. Is that a reasonable expectation?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see the on-site northern junction works at the moment start to take shape. So if you go to the north of the site and you look towards across the fields to where the northern junction ties in, you'll see a road starting to form, and that won't be open for some time, but it will start to look as though it's a finished road. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. There will be bits of road sometimes that you can't use and will be harassed off or barriered off to general use.
I think, yeah, that's obviously useful to know, and it'll be about managing expectations at the time. Now I've got Councillor Morris with a question, and in the chat, Lance and Rupert, if you may see a question from Caroline, Councillor Horrell. I'll leave you, Johnny, could you join us? And
hello, yes, hello. My understanding, and let me know if this isn't correct, is that although the 725 trigger, the number of 75 occupancy hasn't been reached yet, we are treating it as though it has in terms of triggering the implementation plan. Is that, firstly, is that correct? And secondly, I note that the in the previous Kings Barton form, the projection for reaching 725 occupations was October this year, which hasn't been met by about 30 houses. And so I'm expressing concern about that shortfall and asking if that delay is going to be indicative of the other plans, particularly the ones laid out in the proposed start dates for the construction timeline, how locked in those dates are, whether they are now set in stone or whether they could potentially be pushed back if the occupancy rate continues to be sluggish. Thank you.
Thank you. To answer the first question with regards to the implementation plan and the 725th occupation, the 725th occupation was the trigger date. We have been working hard with Hampshire County to have the implementation plan approved. Ideally, it would have been further ahead of that than it was. It's just because of the time taken to actually get it through to a point it could be approved. It was approved when it was. So if we could have done, it might have been when it was the 650th or 625th occupation. So that's nothing to do, the timings of that hasn't actually been anything to do with the sales rates or the occupancy on site. And with regard to the second point, with regard to the dates on the programme here, these, we can't sit here and say they are set in stone. They are what's on the implementation programme that has been agreed with the county, with input from our contractors, our consultants, and this is what we will all be striving to achieve. The sales rate on site will not influence these dates. We have to get the road completed and opened to enable us to finish it and complete the works and open up the entire scheme. So we'll be working to achieve these dates regardless of whether the housing market stays as it is, decreases or improves.
Thank you. That's exactly my question. Thank you for answering it so fully. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Lance. I referenced a question in the chat. I don't know, Caroline, are you able to actually ask it yourself, or are you in a place where you want me to read it out for you? And if you if it's the latter, you're probably not going to come and join us. So
I'm not sure, Chair. I'm actually. Oh no, I am here. Hello. Yes, I was just trying to clarify, based on the earlier comment that was made, if we have concerns about roads that lead into this area and the need to monitor the impact of changes, where is that information required to ensure that that happens and that we get the clarity that we need on those roads being suitably watched as we segue into a new setup? Thank you.
Okay.
So if I understood, Lance, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood your answer to an earlier related question on this, I think you said that Carla, you're talking about the things for which you are responsible. And if I understood correctly, in your answer to Councillor Todd, you were saying, well, you know, it's up to the Highways Authority to be managing and monitoring those other roads. You're nodding, so I think
I agree. Yeah, if anybody has any specific concerns relating to the offsite, the wider road network, those concerns would need to be, they'd need to pick those up with Hampshire County Highways, rather than ourselves, and then they will be able to advise how they will be addressing that. Yeah.
Exactly, and so I think that is a matter for us to table as a question to go back to the County Council. I've got both James and Jackie on with their hands up, but I'll call James. I know you were first, but I'm going to call Jackie in because I think she's jumping in to respond to that question. So Jackie, if
I am, I'm madly writing down every question that's on the list and listening to every question. So at the end of this, I'll probably do it tonight or first thing tomorrow morning and distill those questions back. And then if there's anything further, and share them with the other county councillors. And then if there's anything further, we can follow up from there.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you very much, Jackie, for doing this. And of course, we will have a recording of this forum, and the time is currently 7:29. So I guess this conversation's been happening since about 7:15-ish. So
I've been noting. I can watch again.
Thought you might have been. Okay. Councillor Batho.
Thank you. I just wanted to refer to the retail facilities, which I think, though obviously have their own triggers at the in terms of the development, I think one of the constraints that I understand there's been is actually the availability of the spine road and the opening of the northern and southern junction, such that there is then through traffic coming through the development. Does this new plan suggest that those facilities might not then be available until June 28, when the actual final connection is made on the southern junction? because from my understanding, anyone who's going to take up the lease of those would sort of want to know that the actual junctions have been opened and see the passing traffic. So could you please comment on the implication of what you're showing here on the availability of those retail facilities? Thank you.
Is it okay if I jump in, Chair, and answer that question? I appreciate it was one of the items on the agenda under item 11.
I mean, I could defer it until we actually get to item 11. We can just hold that question if you don't mind. But if you've got a quick answer, fire away now while it's in context.
Just very quick answer. Yes, that was correct. That a lot of the retailers wanted certainty that the road was going to be diverted through the sites. The implementation programme has definitely given them more certainty on that coming forward. We are actually now in discussions with 2 retailers, and we're hoping to get those retailers or appoint someone early next year, sometime next year, but that will be subject to planning. So definitely the implementation programme sort of changed the momentum, and that they can see that the road will be diverted.
Great, thanks, Alison. Perhaps we can talk a little bit more about the neighbourhood centre in a item 10 when we get to it. Right, with that, I'm not seeing any further questions. So I think we've had a good discussion around the highways, roads implementation plan. So I did say we would move the TRO discussion to after we've talked about roads. We have obviously been touching on it, but I'm going to just ask Jackie, who is the, if you like, the intermediary, if you want to jump in here and just say, is there anything else that you think we should be talking about here around TROs that we haven't already covered? And I was putting you on the spot.
No, I did actually ask a question last week of the team that were doing the TROs, because Councillor Warwick, Councillor Todd and I met with the team, and they said any minute now, and we didn't know what any minute now would mean. Well, actually, we've had a confirmation now. The formal start date for the TROs will be the 7th of November, running for 3 weeks and ending on the 28th of November. But the team is due to meet the TRO team again on the 21st to review how the process is unfolded. So I have got a simple flow chart, but effectively it ends up at month 12, 5 to 12, which from roughly August of this year. But I think people will be interested to know that obviously local members, as I said, the 3 of us county councillors have been talked to about this, but also the police, but also once the advert's been created, there's also a separate consultation with the fire brigade, the ambulance service and the bus operators, particularly in the case of road hump consultation, because many people will know, as if they go through that area, there are a lot of road humps planned, and this may have a challenge to the system. And actually, Carla might like to comment on this a little way later on. And then there'll be a report from the Hampshire County Council traffic team considers and attempts to resolve any objections. That's months 4 to 7. And then Hampshire County Council traffic team prepares a report of the consultation, either delegated approval if straightforward and no objections. I can't imagine that's going to be the case, but here we are. And the second one is that a member decision if it's unresolved, significant objections remain, and that will be the 4 months. So that will bring us to 12 months from last August, September time. And then the TRO implementation date, and then the TRO notifications published. And it includes parking, crossings, bus stops, speed limits. I think that's pretty much it.
Yellow lines, double yellow lines.
Double yellow lines. If I mention parking or no parking, yeah. So it's very comprehensive, and it also includes the Andover Road. And so it's on 2 separate roads. So it's looking at 2, even though the Andover Road one is a long way ahead.
Yeah.
But that's helpful.
Does it also include Manley Road, which is kind of one of the link?
The work does. We the 3 councillors saw these, which I've got the paper copies, but it's distilled into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sheets. No, about 70 sheets, I'd say, all on different sections, and Manley Road actually is missing from this. Okay. So it is interesting that that has still not really been resolved, and perhaps Carla might like to comment on that, because at the moment, yeah, I think it still is a very important road, because people from other parts of the site will be directed towards that for quite some time, I think.
Okay. Councillor Warwick, you've got your screen on, and I wondered if that meant you wanted to...
No, only just to back up what Jackie was saying. Sorry, yeah, Steve, the TRO is complex, and the pieces of paper, when they're stretched out, are probably about 15 feet of detailed TRO. So it's going to be a tricky consultation, I think, but it was very helpful for us to see it laid out in paper. It's quite hard to see on a screen. Yeah. Because to see the whole thing, you've got to shrink it so small you can't see the numbers. So it is very detailed. And it was quite iterative. I think Martin, Jackie and I were able to ask questions, sort of suggest where crossings might be appropriate or not. So I think it will be an engaging process going forward.
Yeah.
And it definitely allows for constructive suggestions, which can be incorporated into the outcome.
Yeah. So I think
it starts on the 7th of November.
Yeah. So, and when you say it starts, that means there'll be information about how people can engage with it, where they could go to see the 15-foot, 20-foot long map.
No, we asked specifically, it didn't do that because it took us each about 2 hours to download it on our computer, and that is not practical.
Places where you can go, like, you know, maybe a physical place where you can take it all, and officers can be there and listen to what people have to say. Is that going to be in the process or not? Am I asking too much?
Hopefully.
I think the TRO is put this politely, it's quite dull. It's things like parking restrictions and road signage and other such things. It's not the detailed engineering design, which we saw in an earlier slide. That's something else. So the TRO doesn't change the engineering design.
It's speed reduction, prohibition of driving, and parking restrictions, essentially.
Yeah, so it's speed, exactly.
Is it
no parking? Sorry?
Is it like free-form text? You know, like reading a book? Or
no, it's worse.
There are maps, but they're maps showing where signs go and where different paint on the road goes, and where speed signs go and things like that.
Yeah, and I know that Carla are going to talk about it as well, because they're going to be making it. They've sent out information already, and they're going to continue to engage with the public to help people understand it. But it will be on hants.gov.uk, and then consultations. So it will be there for the 7th of November.
Okay, I'm going to take the suggestion now. Just invite Carla, Lance, or Rupert. Is this something you feel you want to enlarge on what Jackie's just said about what you're going to do to help promote this?
Yeah, so in terms of public awareness of what's coming forward, we're preparing at the moment a communication, a letter drop that will go out to 3,000 residents in the local area of our site. That's the existing residents in the surrounding area and the 690 odd residents within the site. We're working with various stakeholders, including Hampshire, to ensure that the right message comes across. So that's the highways team and their comms team. We have a meeting this week with their comms team to start discussing that, and we'd also like to share that with you, Chair, and your councillors, and the Kings Barton Residents Association as well, before it goes public, and that will give the residents a better understanding of the works that are about to come forward and the timings of those works.
Okay, I think the only thing I just have a little bit of dissonance on there is Jackie's saying that the consultation goes live on the 7th of November, according to the county.
According to the email I've received, and I think I forwarded it to you.
3 or 4 days away. So
that's something that's news to us. We were expecting it to go out in December. So we need to take that away and understand that a little better. And just what that entails and what will be made public.
Right. Okay. Well, it's progress that this is happening. We'll not worry too much about a little bit of dissonance in my head. I'll sleep soundly, I think, regardless. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Jackie, for covering that, and Jan, your contribution, and Rupert as well. So let's move on to the other part, which I was going to invite Carla to talk to. I think we may be starting with Alison, which is the other public infrastructure, community building, neighbourhood centre, etc., etc. So Alison, do you want to kick off there?
Yeah. Absolutely. In relation to the community building, we've been working with Winchester City officers for several months. We've been responding to consultation responses, and that's back now with Winchester. The only outstanding consultee, and if Ruth's on the call as well, is urban design. So we're just waiting for the urban design officer comments. We have, in the meantime, been working very closely with the parish council, as Councillor Watters indicated, to ensure that the end product is fit for purpose for the end user. And we've had some very positive dialogues with the parish council, so we'd like to thank them for their positive engagement. We have also instructed our working drawings as well, which is normally something that we would do once we get planning and get just to ensure we've actually reduce the time frame that it takes us to get onto site and start delivering the community centre. We're in a good position. So yes, it's just really still with council pending determination for the community building, subject to the urban design officer comments, which we hope are positive.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess regarding that point about the urban design, I think Ruth is still on the line, on the call. Ruth, are you able to take that away and give a few nudges for a response on that?
Yes, Steve, no problem. I think we are nearly there on that submission now, so hopefully that will come forward shortly and be determined.
Okay.
I'll definitely pick it up with them again.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any questions from any other members on what Alison's been saying on the community building? And in which case, Alison, if you want to move on to the neighbourhood centre and shots, which you talked about a bit earlier, so you may feel there's not much more to say, but I'll leave you to.
Yeah, I suppose there's not more I can elaborate on the neighbourhood centre. As I think the last update we provided was it was the road. Retailers were a bit reluctant to enter into discussions until they had certainty on the road being diverted through the site. As indicated earlier, the implementation programme has significantly helped that. We're in dialogue now with 2 retailers. Unfortunately, I can't give those names at the moment, but we do hope that we can sort of get them signed up early next year, and then we can give you an update at the next forum meeting if we're in that position. But yes, we've got more positive responses now from retailers.
Good. Okay, any questions on that? Good. Okay, and then the recreation ground. Perhaps I don't know if there's been any movement on that. You want to bring us up to speed with?
So the layout of the recreation ground was approved under the reserve matters, which we refer to as 2B, and these are the sports pitches which are north of Manley Road. Have submitted the details to discharge the petition relating to the detail of the pitches. So that relates to the specification, the trim trail, the equipment. So it's actually the detail of what we're proposing. That has been submitted to council. I don't believe it's been validated. I think there was a bit of a backlog, so we're still waiting for the validation, but that detail has been submitted to council for discharge.
Right. Okay. I guess the question that most people want to know is kind of when, never mind all the, if you're a resident in the area, your question is, when's it going to be there? I appreciate that you don't have control of all the, all the parts, but are you working towards a target date for that?
So our target date is we want to get the grass pitches completed by the summer of next year. We've got a specialist contractor who's actually delivering the pitches, and we have a 12-month bedding in period, so we have to deliver the pitches by the summer. Then they're sort of fenced off to enable the seed and everything to establish, and then they'll be open to the public in summer 27.
Right.
So there is quite a significant bedding in period.
Okay.
And we'll be progressing the pavilion and the trim trail next year as well.
And if I understand it correctly, the parish council are aware of the gist of that timeline and the sequencing and so on, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay. Right, and then let's talk about the mugger to the extent that you can at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have received a letter from Winchester City Council officers, which is very helpful in relation to setting out the council's position and the parish council. In principle, yes, we can agree to a full-size Muga on, it would be phase 4A, which is the phase that's facing the railway line. That would have to be subject to a separate planning application, but I can confirm we are, in principle, happy to commit to a full-size Muga, but as I said, it would be subject to the reserved matters for that phase.
That's great. I think the
so it's good news.
local people will be very happy about that. Okay. Any questions on that? Not seeing any hands up. That's great. Thank you very much for. Oh, I've got a question here or a comment from Councillor Horrell. Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. I put in the chat question, and I think some of the other councillors equally were raising that about the extra care home status and indeed the nursery. So both ends of the spectrum. Would you be able to update us, please? Thank you.
In terms of the nursery, that does form part of the application that's in with the community building, and we are actually testing and going out to the market on the nursery in terms of what interest there is. I understand that the school has actually extended their nursery, so at the moment we're just sort of testing if there's an operator that would actually take the nursery. Extra care, I'd have to please take that and give an update at the next forum if that's acceptable, just to get an update on that.
That would be helpful, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good questions to ask there. And I think the last item on here is I frame it as the car park that Carla is delivering, which sometimes gets referred to as the park and ride, but actually what you're delivering is the car park, I think. So what's your expectation on how you're going to manage that through, given the timetable with the highways?
At the moment, from a planning perspective, we've submitted the details to discharge the relevant planning conditions, which relates to the street furniture, disabled parking spaces and cycle. Our technical team have been working very closely with Winchester and Hampshire. Those details have been resubmitted back to the council, so again Ruth can jump in, and we're hoping those conditions can be discharged. As we indicated at the last forum meeting, we are amending the trigger. The current trigger for the delivery of the park and ride is 650. We're aligning that with the 1,000, which just makes sense for the opening of the road to be done in parallel with the opening of the park and ride. So that's what we're doing at the moment, and that's with Winchester City Council officers.
Right. Now, there's something that's occurred to me as we've gone through this, is we've had verbal updates from Carla on these items in the past, but they're very much sort of, as we've done today, they're verbal updates, and I want to contrast that with the summary slide that you showed up for the road implementation plan, where you've kind of put in your target dates, which, you know, and you've acknowledged that it's not totally within your control, and, you know, dates might change, but at least we've got a schedule there. Is it possible to kind of apply that same approach in communications to these other items? Because I think it might help us to sort of determine, okay, what are the right things what are the upcoming things that we actually need to be talking about and keeping sight of in the forum, so we don't necessarily have to do a verbal update on everything every single time, although sometimes that is useful. But I can't help it. Members may ask the questions, but at least we've got a framework in which we can have those conversations. Is that possible for next time?
Yeah,
absolutely. Just to clarify, would it be in terms of like the neighbourhood centre, just our summary of our current position, and we would update that table for the forum? Is that what you're anticipating?
That sort of thing, yeah. So, you know, and you might feel there might be particular things on there where the level of, if you like, the level of risk is at a point where you're really not comfortable to put any date on it. But if we can identify the things where you are comfortable to put, you know, a date subject to, you know, caveat, I think that's the sort of thing that's helpful, you know, in this forum. I know there's always a challenge with dates. You know, if you put target dates and then things slip, then people, you know, can sometimes not necessarily appreciate why they slipped. But it would, I think, help us to structure this part of the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's something we can take away, and I'll liaise with Ruth and make sure we get a structure that yourself and the councillors are happy with.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I'm not seeing. Oh, I am seeing a question, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, and on a related level, I've been to other forums of similar nature, and this actually ties slightly back to the road. But one of the things that can be very helpful, just to show people the state of the development, is a drone flyover, which we get for North Whiteley, for example. And particularly when new roads are going in and there's a new bit of engineering that's been done, I think it might be quite useful just to help people get a sense of what's going on with the development as a whole. Is that something that could be thought of?
Yeah, I'm sure we can consider it. We our ground worker is often taking drone footage of the scheme as it comes together, so I'm sure we can commission them to take a shot along the avenue, if it's not something they're already doing, because I think they're quite proud of the work they're doing out there anyway. So I'm sure it's on their agenda to do something similar.
Well, I think that could be helpful, particularly once the once you've done the sort of northern bit of the road, apart from obviously the joining up bit, then it feels like it would just tell people
the story,
what is coming.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll arrange that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much for that, Alison, Lance, and Rupert. I think we've covered all the items on there. I guess there was actually, sorry, there is one item that we raised earlier, which is around the travel plan coordinator and the car club. Do you know if there's been any conversations between them and Hebburn Withy Parish Council and the Residents Association about promoting the car club more widely? Well, at least within the people that they have communications channels with. That would be perhaps useful.
There was some discussions with Mike Slynn. What I'm proposing to do is to get an update from our travel plan coordinator to actually provide us some slides or a presentation pack that can be presented at the Residents Association AGM.
Oh, brilliant.
And then what I was proposing, then it'd be a formal presentation at this forum meeting if the chair is happy to have that as an agenda item. But it probably would be just a couple of slides and an update for that can be circulated at the AGM.
Okay, well, I hope I'm invited to the AGM still after this evening, and I'll see. I'll have a preview of it. I'm sure it will be great for this meeting. Councillor Baffey.
Yes, it was really just to remind that I think at the last meeting, my suggestion was that it was also widened out to other parish councils, particularly in this case Littleton and Harestock, because the particular vehicle is actually probably closer to residents of Harestock in many cases than it is to the northern part of the development. So there's actually a more there's a wider community that could actually make use of that. Particularly as Littleton and Harestock Parish Council have got a sustainability group and a very sort of much into encouraging alternate sort of uses of transport. So just again, could I please ask that it's actually widened out to them, so that the communication is not just within the development, but actually sort of on the sort of boundaries or across the boundaries, because the sort of use of these facilities are not necessarily just within the development itself, and I think that's sort of to some extent goes back to the sort of elements of the CGR in terms of what is the sort of facilities that are being provided and who might use them. Thank you.
Sunny, good at considering that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the pack that we put together for the Residents Association, we can ensure that it's circulated to all the adjoining parish councils. The other idea we were thinking was if we had a poster as well that can go up on parish council newsletter boards. We're also, as soon as the neighbourhood centre and the community building is open, we'd like to consider moving the car club to a more central location, and it makes more sense for it to be in the neighbourhood centre. So that's something that we definitely would like to do as soon as possible.
Right, that makes sense. Excellent. Right, I think I'd like to move on to item 12, which is the bus service. I'm going to invite Councillor Porter to update us on the latest discussions around improving the bus service.
Right,
Councillor Porter.
Thank you very much. Well, as part of this work, we've got some figures from the community services about the number of people that had used the trips or had used the bus, and actually it's they also have a running average. So although it goes up from 622 down to 474 in August, the average per month is sticking pretty consistently at about 579, and that's in the last 6 months. And I know that some parish councillors have actually expressed a concern that is still sticking at that number, despite the fact that there are more houses there and more homes on Kings Barton. However, during this time as well, from April, I think probably May, June time, there was quite a lot of disruption on the main road, and so we've had the numbers rise and fall throughout that time. The average is 65% are adult trips, 6% are children's trips, and 29% are concessions trips, which is interesting. That's pretty much the last month is very typical of that time. In July, there were a lot more children's trips and a lot more concessions trips, so the number did actually go up to nearly 700 trips that month. So based on that, we were trying to see whether we could improve the service, which currently goes out of, once it started at the north, it goes out of Manley Road, down the main road, back into the site and out again. And we were just about to convert it to a full site through the whole development when that came to an end because the work started on the main road. We are trying to find a way, and in fact, a resident who's also a parish councillor said, well, actually, all we've got to do is worry about where the main bus stops are. I thought, actually, they're absolutely right. If we can stick to the main bus stops being on places where they won't ever be affected by the routes, then we have a better chance of getting a route that we can vary slightly, but still stop at every stop every time. So that's currently being worked out now, and we've raised that with Carla as well. We did that last week, and Alison and the team said they would do their best to see if they could work this out. So at the moment, the bus service is still continuing on the old route, but we are trying to find a way of making it so that it's a more efficient service. It starts at the top and goes straight through down the main road and out at the bottom. It may have to divert occasionally. We were thinking that was going to be impossible because of one particular area on that route, but it sounds like we are going to be able to make it work. I'm hoping that we'll have an answer in the next few weeks of whether this is going to happen. This is subject really to Carla being able to help us with the routing, and also with the team at Hampshire being able to offer a route that doesn't need to be varied. If they need to vary the route significantly from the one we've got now, which they will have to do, they have to give 28 days notice. So it doesn't ever happen immediately. It has to have a 28-day notice. It's 28 days rather than 56 days because it's a fully commissioned service, not a commercial service. And that's why it's not needing 56 days. So hopefully by Christmas we should be knowing whether we can actually go back down the main road. If Carla can get everything to align and the team can get their variation to align, we should be able to make it by Christmas, or certainly in the new year. But it is encouraging that an average of 579, and last month it was, in September, it was 611 people made a journey on that bus.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, I think the current service means it takes quite a long time, a lot longer to get from the north side of Kings Barton all the way into town than it would do if it went directly through the estate. So one would hope that when you're balancing out how to travel, the bus service will then become a lot more attractive as an option than it currently is. So
but on Saturday afternoon I saw 4 people come back from the town on the bus and get off in the southern section. So it was really heartening to see a whole family using it on Saturday afternoon rather than driving a car in. It's great.
Yep, absolutely. Councillor Batho.
Yeah, thank you. It's encouraging the services obviously being used by the residents of Kings Barton. Just wondered, in terms of information, do we have an idea of what the preferred or what the sort of most used destination is for the sort of service? Does the community first have any sort of understanding of that, or is it just the number of trips that are actually taken?
They are saying that actually the journeys to the station weren't as popular as they were hoping. But I think it is because of the timing, it just doesn't quite work, and that's something they need to change, and they're aware of that. And they are looking at whether they can change that so that it's only at certain times of day, which when people are likely to need it. But mainly people are going straight into the town. But I can get the exact information for the next perhaps for the next forum when we have a bit more information then.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great.
Okay. Thank you. Right, I think we can move on to our last item, and we are just over 8 o'clock, which is our allotted time. AOB. Anyone got any AOB that's really pressing? Jackie, I was going to make. You've got your hand up, Jackie. I don't know if that's your old hand or you're putting up. I was going to ask you if you want to have a quick mention about the Barton line and the success we think you've had with support from other county councillors in getting the resurfacing under the bridge. Is that too early to say? You're looking at me as
I don't want to make it a success until it's actually done.
Okay, you're saying, Steve, you're tempting fate here. So let's just
absolutely.
Hold back. Okay.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't happen, you can blame me.
I can just say that the efforts of Cycle Winchester, I'd just like to thank them. and the people that are doing the bike buses to the school, to Kings Barton School. I think they've been great at supporting us, and they've actually led the way in many cases to say we want this work done. I really appreciate them adding those extra emails and a video, which I think was really touched the hearts of the county council officers. So I'd just like to thank them. So when we've actually got it, you'll hear the whoop of delight from a lot of people, probably all over the town.
Yeah.
I was also just going to say that during the summer, I thought that the suds looked absolutely beautiful down Winchester Avenue. They were stunningly beautiful effective wildflower meadows in themselves. And I think the team is to be congratulated for that, because it was quite a dusty environment from time to time, but actually they looked really good, and it was encouraging to see those. And also we were there on Saturday afternoon, and it was absolutely pouring with rain, and all the water was going down into those suds. So that was really encouraging to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, with that, thank you, Jackie. I will just say that the next meeting of the Kings Barton Forum is on the 2nd of March, and it's 6 o'clock as usual. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody online then, and reviewing the progress that I'm sure will happen. So thank you very much. I've just got to say that concludes the formal business for the meeting. Thank you for attending this virtual meeting. Good night. The recording broadcast may well run on for another 10 seconds, so please keep your microphones muted until we're sure